Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. And I'm super thrilled to have you on board wherever you're listening, if it's here in New York, somewhere else in the United States or Canada, or anywhere else on our great planet. Thanks for being here. And boy, did I just have an amazing, incredible conversation with a former NHL athlete who suffered through some concussions and had to retire because of that. He had a nice little career and a great story. And my guest, Jesse Winchester, is just such a great guy. This was such an amazing episode because you really hear about how you've become a professional athlete and now suddenly sort of have it taken away and what he's doing since then. Great episode. But before you jump into that, make sure you subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere else, YouTube, wherever you're listening to this, hit that subscribe button. Also, go to my website anytime, markmoyer.com, for access to all the previous episodes, along with great content on how to really take your business, your career, everything else to the next level. And that's what I'm all about. I love doing that. But this is a super episode. You're going to love it. Jesse's a great guy, just a really grateful, thankful, and appreciative guy. Nice guy. I mean, you're going to love this episode. So go ahead and listen and enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm super excited to have Jesse Winchester on board. He's right now hanging out, having a great old time in a room in Ottawa. I always say it wrong. So Jesse, step in and say hello.
Yeah, actually, thanks for having me on. I'm actually in a library in Ottawa, which is kind of a Colgate thing to do. So.
Well, you know,
somewhat.
We never hesitate to keep on learning in one way or another because of our fabulous education or something like that.
Yeah.
But yes, Jesse is a fellow Colgate alum, and I'm super excited to have you on board, Jesse. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. We're going to talk a fair amount about hockey, which is a huge passion of mine, certainly. But we're also going to talk about what I find is another big passion of mine, which is the transition from being a professional athlete and really where you and others are going next. And because I think most people, the presumption is that a professional athlete, you know, they play and they make a billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, and then they retire and then they just play golf the rest of their life. And maybe a couple of them that's it. But for the most part, most professional athletes, they end up retiring a lot younger than obviously the average person. They retire at 25, 28, 30, 32. And now they have 50 years, 60 years, 100 years, whatever to live. And it can be really a challenge to figure out, well, what am I going to do for the next X amount of time? And so we're going to cover all that. But Jesse, I want to start off by talking about, look, you played in the NHL for a while, you played collegiately, but going backwards a bit, where were you born and raised, and what got you into hockey in the first place?
Oh, well, good questions. All of them. I grew up actually along the St. Lawrence River, the border of the U.S., in a little town called Long Sault near Cornwall.
Okay.
You know, my parents got me involved as a diehard Habs fan. They were an hour down the road in Montreal. So I just grew up idolizing Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg from the Avs. And, you know, I was just obsessed with hockey. Everything I did, every school report, every class presentation, everything revolved around the game and my love for it, and just want to be involved in it in some way.
So you started playing when you were, how old were you when you started?
My earliest memories are, well, not memories, but through pictures, backyard rink, that my dad built probably when 3 years old, and then carried that on through, played all the levels of minor hockey, and got competitive whenever I was about 10. So, great experiences, all of them, and fortunate to have lived them.
Now, for us down here in the States, curious, is it a requirement as a father to have that backyard rink? It's got to be, right?
I'm going to be building my first one next winter, so
that's what I figured. Of course,
in the family.
Of course, and I'm always curious to know. I mean, do you have to have a 3-car garage? You got 2 cars and then the Zamboni?
The old shovels, the way we went. My dad's, after we moved out, my dad since got a snowblower. Back when it was 3 boys pushing.
Of course. Oh, trust me, I know. Well, look, that's great, because you were immersed in the game. But at what point and what age did you sort of think, you know what? I'm playing with all these other guys, and there's thousands and thousands of players, kids your age playing. But at what point, Jesse, were you like, you know what? I'm actually pretty decent at this. Like, at what age was it that you thought maybe this could be something?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know if I ever looked beyond what was right in front of me. I was never a top prospect or anything. So just wanted to be good at the level that I was at and hopefully get to move on. That was kind of the case growing up, playing rep hockey and AA, and transitioning to junior. It took me a while. I had to play at some levels that you wouldn't exactly expect an NHL player to have gone through. But, I was very passionate and very, very hardworking, skilled, but I was really late growing. So there were some odds that were stacked against me. I had to be patient, but I continued improving, and then fortunate to receive a full scholarship to Colgate in the first year that they offered them. And, from there, my first year was really rough, but going into my second year was when things kind of, I matured into my body, skills all came together, and started to become a more impactful player at that level, and received some recognition and some scouting advice from people, and kind of realized that I might be able to, have a chance one day to play at some level professionally.
Oh, that's great. So were you reaching out to college? I mean, was the plan to go to a 4-year, a college and get a scholarship and so forth, or did that just sort of fall into your lap a little bit?
Well, I mean, take one step back. I wasn't good enough to play in the major junior league in Canada, which when you're young, if you're a phenom, that's kind of where you go. It's a fast track to the NHL, but I had to be patient. I was late growing, late blooming. And my parents were teachers. I was always going to get an education. But I had to wait until I was 20 before I received a full scholarship. So, it was just about living in the moment, trying to get better at the level that I was at. I'm not sure Colgate would have been in the cards for me had it not been for that scholarship, but it was a great experience. And I'm so thankful that, the coaching staff there saw enough in me to take a chance on me, and, just blossomed over the 4 years that I spent.
What made that first year tough for you?
Just adjusting to the pace, and not that it's that much of a different country, but just feeling like you're a bit further away from home. It was a challenge, but I was welcomed by so many awesome teams. It was a really productive year as a team. And I had a little bit of a lesser role. So coming from a team where I was the go-to guy, I had to kind of relearn the hierarchy, and just getting back into school after being out for a little while. And then just the demands of that schedule. It was just all a lot at once, and, but it was amazing. And I had a little bit too much fun maybe my first semester. It worked out, and really thankful that I was able to attend Colgate for sure.
Well, one of the things that I hear all the time in discussions with student athletes at colleges is that that they sort of say, well, you've got to dedicate your time to three things, but you really only have time to truly dedicate it to two, whether it's the sport, the academics, and your social life. And so there's some student athletes that are all about the sports and then the social life, and they kind of let the academics fall apart, or sports and academics, and you don't have much time to socialize. It's just tough to balance all three of those elements. And, when you're 18, 19, 20, and you're put in an environment where you're not necessarily under specific supervision, you might be, by your coach, I guess, or coaching staff, but you're a free guy, you're a free person, and you've got all this stuff in front of you socially. You've got the ability to be out at the bars, the restaurants, everything else. You've got, relationships, you got all kinds of things going on. And then you got, well, wait a minute, I've got this academic workload that I'm at a pretty top college, university. I've got to really, keep pace with everything here. These are pretty smart people here. And then on top of that, well, I'm playing for a pretty top level collegiate program. I got to get my ass in gear to stay on top of all this. That's a lot for someone at that age to really absorb and excel in. What is that sort of what you experienced?
Yeah. It was a great place and a challenging one. And I was fortunate to be able to balance all three by the time I kind of really got into my rhythm there. But I was passionate about school too. Didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, but I'd always been a decent student and enjoyed studying, enjoyed working, and obviously enjoyed my best buds. So for me, tried to balance all three as a priority. But going there, my goal was to just continue on in hockey and try to make it one next year, and then play one more year longer than my buddies who finish after school. And then so my focus was there. My spare time was spent trying to get better in the gym or on the ice. And really fortunate to, I say it all the time, and I've said it probably 5 times already, fortunate, but it was just the perfect place for me to kind of grow up and develop on the ice and off the ice.
Yeah, I think, most of the country really doesn't know much about Colgate University. It's obviously a fairly small school, and tucked in the middle of New York State, and it's sort of off the beaten path. It has a very strong reputation. Interestingly, for such a small school, the athletics program is incredible. The ladies hockey team played in the championship game last year. The men's basketball team was in the NCAA tournament this year. The football team was in the playoffs this year. It's a very vibrant school for not just the academics, but for athletics and for the arts and everything else. So you're absolutely right. I think anybody that really has the opportunity to go there, it does feel fortunate. And one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast is how critical it is to leverage and really use the when you attend a university, any university and school, honestly, it's so important to leverage the network, leverage the alumni network that you're a part of. And I think a lot of people, and it's not unusual and it's not a bad thing necessarily, but people don't necessarily pick up on that. And it's once people start the process of just reaching out to other fellow graduates, it's really incredible how that network is just so strong. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But so you're wrapping up your time at Colgate, and how did the draft, how did you find out, and when did you find out that you were going to be playing professionally?
Well, it was kind of evolved over the course of 3 years. The first contact I had with an NHL team was during my sophomore year. But I was too old to be drafted. So the way I was going to make it was through free agency, signing with the team on a simple deal, really, to try to find my way. And after my third year, we played at St. Lawrence in the playoffs, and I was actually offered a contract to sign in Anaheim. But that's where it kind of got real. I hadn't really skated with an NHLer before. I wasn't groomed to be a professional, really, and had some sleepless nights, kind of contemplating whether to sign or not. And I had, My mentor and one of my best friends, Andrew Dixon, who was the assistant coach at the time, just some real chats about whether or not I thought I could still improve at the college level or whether I was ready to embark on the professional path. And I made the decision to come back, graduate with my buddies, and my teammates, and try to focus on really prepping myself for a pro career in my senior year. And, after that, I had pretty much the pick of the litter, probably over a dozen teams to choose from. And I chose Ottawa because they were going to put me in a game the very next week after my season was over. So I got to go live in the NHL, the playoff run there, while my buddies were finishing senior spring. And I had to balance the workload there. But honestly, it was fantastic experience and had a ton of support. My teammates from Colgate trekked to Boston to watch my first game. And it was very, very special. And, just memories that I'll have for the rest of my life. And they were obviously a big part of helping me reach my goal and dream there.
So you're playing with the Senators now. You're in the playoffs. I mean, this is it's an incredible transition from one day you're sort of in a classroom at Colgate University. You've wrapped up sort of playing your senior season, and then poof, now you're in the play. I mean, how did that, that must have been incredible, but it was also probably you're what is going on here? I mean, what was it like?
It was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
I prepped for it that year though. There was a lot of time and effort that went in, not only to the school side, but just understanding that I'd have these options available to me in March once our season was over. So planned it with the professors who were pretty accepting and understanding, and I still had to complete my work, but they allowed me to do it in a different way, I guess, given the circumstance. So, joining the team was super special. It was, reaching one part of what was a childhood dream, and just the learning curve that came with that was huge in a short amount of time, and getting to lace them up against the best players in the world, and now to be sitting on the bench with them was fantastic. I wish everybody could have experienced it, all my teammates at Colgate, but it was a challenge too, and I love that part of it. And I just wanted to make sure I could remain relevant and find a way to make the team as a consistent performer.
Yeah, well, obviously you did. So you ended up you had a nice start with them, and then of course here comes the lockout in a couple of years later, and a lot of the players really didn't know what direction to go, what to do, whether they should go play overseas, whether they should just stay at home, play minor, whatever. What made you choose to go to Europe at the time, Finland?
Well, heading into that summer, I was going to be a free agent, and Ottawa chose not to re-sign me. And that was the first kind of blow to the old ego, where you want to play in one area for your entire career and be the loyal athlete that we all think about when we think about the ones that we grew up watching. But, given the circumstance, and I didn't really have a job contract lined up for the next season, it just made sense from a business standpoint for me to go over there. And I could run you through the details of it, but that's the gist of it. It was, I was there to work, and it was a fantastic experience. Wouldn't change it. Loved traveling the world. My girlfriend at the time, was able to spend the first month and a half there before Christmas in the second league in Tudo, and in a city called Turku. And then once the lockout ended, and just based on the options I had, both signing a two-way contract in the NHL, AHL, and then the offer presented to me in Finland, the Finland one kind of just was more, it seemed more sure, more certain. And I had to sign that, and loved my time in Jokerit. It was short-lived. I hurt my knee, but played with some guys who I played with in the NHL, and just loved the experience of living in Finland.
Well, that's certainly one of the top teams that's not in the NHL. I mean, it was. I'm sure it was beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful country, and it's really the people are so friendly. I think we have a tendency to lose sight of some of that. We don't necessarily notice it here in the States or in Canada, but it's a great place to be. So what was the point that you said, well, you know what, I'm coming back, here come the Panthers? I mean, tell me a little quickly about that transition.
Well, I've been warned that when you go overseas, sometimes it's hard to work your way back to the NHL, but just given the circumstance of the lockout and all that, I wanted to give it a go. And I realized that once I was over in Jokerit, how amazing it was, and that I'd be totally happy going back and re-signing there. But, I wanted my agent to push for an opportunity in NHL, and it certainly wasn't given to me. I signed a two-way in Florida. I was actually on the golf course, a charity golf tournament that I helped lend my name to in support of Boys and Girls Club in Cornwall, and sifting through some offers on the spot, and just decided to take that challenge, mostly because the American League hockey team was situated in San Antonio, and I figured it'd be nice to have a warm winter either way. And from then on, it was just eyes forward, focus on my goal of making the Panthers, and very fortunate to have earned my roster spot from day one there, and spent a great year. Team wasn't solid, but loved my experience, and getting off the plane in the middle of the night and being like walking into warm air instead of -30.
I was gonna say
it was a great time though.
I know, getting off the plane and seeing a palm tree. I mean, that's the first, like, wait a minute. Where am I?
Home from Winnipeg where it's -40, getting beat nothing, and then I get to sleep in and go to the beach on Sunday. So
I know, not bad. No wonder why people never want to leave those Tampa and Miami, right? So then your experience with the Panthers ends, and then you're faced with a contract with Colorado, the Avalanche, right? And I think you signed a 2-year deal with them. Is that what it was?
Yeah. So I was so excited to be going there because, Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg, were some of my favorite players growing up, Joe Sakic. And they'd just come off of a playoff run with a young core. And I was like, oh my God, this is my chance to potentially win a Stanley Cup. Like, I got to go do it. So it worked. I mean, it was a pretty good situation to be walking into, for sure. And I was very, very pumped about it.
Yeah. But as we'll talk about in a second, but that was somewhat short-lived. I mean, you ended up skating in a preseason game, and you got hit pretty badly. And so tell me about what happened with that and what that sort of led to. Well,
yeah, it was the middle of camp. I traveled and played a few games, finding my groove. Really loved the situation I was put in. Kind of depth forward, but getting to watch the likes of Nathan McKinnon and Gabe Landeskog and Duchene and Ryan O'Reilly, and just kind of be that fill-in role, which I had no problem doing, and I was having a good camp, getting my feet underneath me, and I just had an awkward spill where I went into the boards really hard and suffered a pretty massive, or I don't know if you want to call it massive, but just a debilitating concussion that the symptoms lingered for over a year. So flew all over for a treatment, looking for answers, and basically it was just time, and it didn't, the symptoms didn't clear up on my time. They cleared up on their own time. And it just kind of led to the decision to shut my playing career down, because I have a lot of life to live afterwards. And, it was tough, but here I am, and, still have some great memories of playing, and obviously look back on my career pretty fondly.
So tell me a little bit about because I think people that haven't not just played sports, but been injured in that sort of way, describe to me a little bit about what some of these symptoms were like, and because people kind of think, well, we've had headaches, I've had headaches, geez, just get over it. It's not that at all. What was some of that you went through?
Well, the headaches at first for the first couple of weeks, or even I had about 2 months of headaches, a headache at the same time every day. But for me, it was more of there was an issue with my eyes. And it just felt like, well, when I went into a grocery store, I couldn't walk down the aisles, like the colors of the boxes of cereal or whatever. I wouldn't be able to just focus on what I had to focus on. It was all just mumble jumbled. So when I extend that to the rink, I tried to come back a bunch of times, like as my energy was coming back and I was feeling healthy in most situations. But in the massive NHL rinks where there's people sitting and just the seats and the lights and whatever, I wasn't able to focus on what I had to. And then on the flip side of that, it just took so much effort to focus on making a pass that was something that came naturally. And it just kept persisting and persisting. And, it sucked because didn't look injured and had to answer the same questions all the time. But just weighed on you because I wanted to be out there, but there was just something that wasn't right. And, the team was good. They flew me around the country to meet with different specialists. And, what I've learned is it's not all that uncommon. The symptoms that I was dealing with, other people have had them. And, I've worked my way through them and, I don't seem to be bothered anymore by them. So, but it was tough. It was a tough year.
So, and I don't mean to harp too much on the tough part, but I'm doing this. I'm trying. I mean, look, I know that there are going to be people listening to this that have gone through a similar experience and or are, it may be upcoming. And, what are some of the things that kept you, busy? I mean, you have 24 hours a day now where you're maybe still trying to, and this is during that year plus that, until that led to retirement, but what kept you busy? What did you try to do that, obviously I'm assuming not just grocery shopping, maybe even watching TV or doing almost things that required lots of motion around you must have been challenging. What did you do?
We were living in Denver, so I was able to get out to the mountains quite a bit, but, for the most part, I was just so focused on coming back to playing. And so most of my day was like hamster on the wheel. It was the same kind of thing. Go to skate, see if I felt good, how long I felt good or healthy for. Did it improve? This, that, whatever. Go get treatment on my neck, my eyes. And it was draining, looking back, thankful for my wife, obviously, who was there during some dark times where I wasn't feeling like myself. So, and because it persisted, for so long, it was a little bit depressing, but, in time it got better. And, it sucks that I can't play hockey anymore, but, I've been able to transition into coaching because I still had that love for the game. And, it's been very fulfilling that way. And I'm to the point where would I love to enjoy playing? Yeah. I probably missed out on a year of earning potential. Who knows? But I had a pretty darn good run. And once I got through that darkness, I have great memories. And, I'm healthy now and excited for what lies ahead.
No, that's great. And so if you could give advice to somebody that either, and I don't want to say it's about to have it come out, but I mean, somebody that's about to go through what you sort of went through, looking back on that time, and we'll move on in a second, but looking back at that time, I know you mentioned obviously your wife was such a pillar for you and so forth, and friends and family, I'm sure, but is there anything specific that you would suggest to somebody that is still thinking, I can do this, I can get back and so on? What kind of advice would you give?
I mean, make sure that you're giving yourself the time to get better and not forcing things. I mean, I was a guy who, like we all are at that level, just driven to compete and play. And the frustration of it not getting better on my time and just being around guys and feeling not like you're hiding something, but just you look like you're fine, but you're not. And I think it's important to have a solid network of family and friends who are there to support you. Like, it was Atlanta in my first season in Denver. We didn't really know people, and I wasn't able to connect with my teammates because they were on the road. I just had to stay back, and but the sun comes up in Denver, and we enjoyed exploring the mountains a little bit. Tried my best to get back to playing, and made the right decision ultimately. Like, I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
Hopefully don't have that happen. But it's part of my journey. And minus that year, I have some pretty amazing hockey memories to look back on, and that's what I choose to focus on now.
Of course, you should, and that's the big thing is that one of the big things that are happening now, and I'm sure you've seen some of it, Jesse, but there's much more of a sort of a spotlight being shown on a lot of what you went through, a lot of athletes, but also not just athletes. It's also veterans of the people that have gone through any sort of brain injury or traumatic incident or something. There's a habit of. Right now, I mean, it's getting so much better, but it used to be where people, as you said, almost like teammates might look at you and say, well, what the heck's going on with that guy? He looks fine. And they don't understand it because they haven't gone through it. And I think that the more people talk about this, and the more people share their experiences and share sort of what they can do to help, I think, because we all hear about some of the unfortunate stuff that happens to a lot of players that they go through a decline and they just can't get out of that decline. I mean, you certainly seem like you have, but a lot of people don't. And so, one thing that I try to do, and there's some great people out there that are really working hard on this to really work through with players and with management and coaching and so forth, that, to help people that are going through some of this stuff. So, thank you for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. So we're going to shift gears a little bit now, because I want to talk about, well, what's next for you? And then let's talk about the transition. So you've decided to, you said, well, you know what? Unfortunately, physically, I'm unable to continue playing. I'm stepping into some coaching, which I know you've been doing. But what are some of the things that an athlete can expect, if, in your opinion, when they decide to retire, they announce their retirement, they get up to the microphone in front of us. No, wait, you don't do that. But you're not. This isn't Lou Gehrig, I want to, But you sort of announce your retirement, and like maybe 5 seconds after that, the agent is like, "Well, see you later, nice knowing you," kind of thing. I mean, maybe not in your case, but in a lot of cases, they're like, "Well, you're no longer really a source of revenue. I'm out of here." The league, the team is saying, "Well, thanks for playing for us. See you later." The league is sort of saying, "Well, tell you what, here are some resources available to you. Call this guy, that person, this woman, or reach out to this website and see you later," kind of thing. What was your experience with that?
Well, the biggest adjustment was having every aspect of your life planned for you, from flights, meals, meetings, whatever. Always having to be somewhere at a certain time, and then just enjoying the playing part. And then having none of that, and coupled with the injury stuff, it was a bit shocking. I think most guys will go through it. There's only a few who get their jersey retired, who have the real retirement ceremonies and all that stuff. So I'm definitely not alone in that. And I was just at home and taking some time to figure out what I wanted to kind of pursue next in life as a challenge. And it was taking some time, and I was offered a position coaching junior A hockey, and then being the development coordinator for a co-op program through a high school. So it kind of found me, and I'm so thankful for it, because it's helped me, organize myself, become a better communicator, just get back on my feet in leaving the game. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have worked with the kids that I have over the last 2 years. So it's been fun. And then further to that, other interests, I've like going back to school. I graduated in geography, with a degree in geography from Colgate, and really love that, and have picked it up, studying renewable energies and sustainability and innovation at the Harvard Extension School. So, my calendar's booked. Pretty busy guy, but very motivated and love doing what I'm doing right now.
You always want to tell people you're a Harvard grad, don't you?
I wouldn't say Harvard grad. I might get a certificate one day, but it might go on the wall.
It'll go on the wall, but then you're going to block out the part that says whatever. You're going to be like Harvard and then graduated. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Colgate's pretty damn good. What are you, so tell me a little bit about what the NHL, whether it's the Players Association or any of the supporting groups, what have they presented to you, or what's been sort of thrown at you or offered to you, or however they do it, to help you with some of that planning, the career planning, and what your next steps are?
Well, the core development program was one option that was presented to me.
Who puts that out? Who's that through?
To be honest, I couldn't even. It's through the NHL Alumni,
okay.
And my contact was John Herlihy and a former player, Jay Harrison, that I grew up playing against and had some battles with on the ice. And they've been good in kind of going through some test results that kind of show where your interests lie, what kind of things may appeal to you, where you might best be suited in the workforce, because that stuff's all new to us. And they did a really great job of breaking down that stuff in order to hopefully prepare us to interview and speak about ourselves a little bit better. But I'm not sure where they stand right now with respect to their involvement in the NHL alumni stuff. But I'm thankful again for the job that they did and starting to prep me anyway for a training.
Man, you're such a nice guy. You know what? You're always grateful and thankful, but
I'm gonna be grateful for it.
I'm gonna turn the knife a little bit in you, I think.
Yeah.
Because look, one of the things that I really like to talk about, and I've already talked to you about this, but is a little bit of my frustration with the fact that a lot of retired athletes, professional athletes, contribute money to a variety of different types of players or alumni organizations and PA and that sort of thing. And to me, there's lots of fun little golf tournaments and that sort of thing, but there's such a vast amount of athletes that retire and they truly struggle. And they're told, well, they're almost like checking a box where you're saying, well, you can reach out to this person or reach out to that website or do this or do that. Here you go. Here are the resources. Go get it. The problem is that a lot of these athletes don't necessarily take the initiative to pick up the phone, because their feeling is that, and I'm not saying this is your case, but in general, a lot of times the feeling is that as an athlete, you're at the top of your game, even if you're on the fourth line, whatever, or you're not playing, but your feeling as an athlete is always you're at the top of your game, you're kicking ass, you're amazing, and then the fans are there and they don't know anything about or they're not players. You're a player, you're at the top of your game. But there's people in suits in the stands there that are fancy executives. As a player, I don't know what the heck they do, but they probably make millions of dollars doing whatever they do, and I can't even really, that's them. And this is me as a player. Now you retire, and now they're saying, hey, start talking to some of these people in suits. And the athlete says, well, wait a minute. I know how to type some skates. I know how to skate. I know how to do this, but I don't know how to talk to these people. They're suits, man. They're fancy people. And I find that most athletes, retired athletes, are easily intimidated by people in suits. People in suits are easily intimidated by the athletes. It's really interesting. And at the end of the day, if you're presented with the right types of tips and strategies and ideas on how to speak to people that you might normally be, I don't want to say intimidated by speaking with, but just not comfortable in that environment, and suddenly it becomes comfortable, then you're off and running. And I get frustrated because I don't hear that sort of advice being given. I hear more of some of what you went through, which is, yeah, we'll give you these assessment tests and we'll see, if you're best suited to be a Mountie or best suited to be a, whatever it is, an accountant or a whatever. But then, okay, great. Now that you tell me I'm supposed to be an accountant, how do I become an accountant? Who do I talk to about that? Is there a big pile of accountants somewhere I can go talk to them? How do I find these people? What do I do? And that's the thing that so right now as we speak, I know that you're, as you said, Jesse, you're taking some classes and, you're sort of in the middle of that. Well, I'm trying to figure out right now sort of what is next for me. Right. And because look, you're 30 something, right? Whatever you are.
Yeah.
Ish. Whatever
right in the middle.
Right in the middle. But you've got, 50, 60, 70, whatever years ahead of you more. And, part of you is saying, well, look, I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do tomorrow. And that's normal. We're all like that. But the other part of you is thinking, well, what am I going to be doing next year at this time, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever. And, one of the things that I want to really be much more involved with, Jesse, and we'll talk about that some more later, but is how to really get the message out to the players, and especially the retired players who are really struggling with a little bit the transition. And I'm not saying you're struggling with it, but you're going through it. But I feel that you could be provided and offered so much more. But let me take a step back. If you had the opportunity to ask the Alumni Association, the Players Association, for a couple of things, like what do you think what would you love to have as a resource? What would be really helpful to you?
That's a really good question. I think, looking back now, it would have to fall on the players a little bit too, to have something going on whenever they were still playing, maybe. Just realizing like, look, yeah, you're going to make great amounts of money while you're young. And yeah, you want to invest it well and do all that stuff, but it's okay to explore other interests in your off time in the summers, while you're still balancing your off ice workload and all that stuff. And because I think that would have allowed me to explore things a bit sooner. And I love coaching, but I also love this other stuff that I'm learning about, and haven't decided either way whether it's worth transitioning out of that spot where I'm a good coach, I think, and I enjoy it, and there's opportunities to pursue. But I do have this passion for renewable energies, and would like to, further my knowledge, but my participation, whether it be through doing my own projects or finding a career in that kind of, realm. I don't know, but I think there should be some kind of preparatory system that might. But it's hard because you're a young guy, and when you're playing,
invincible.
You're playing forever, and you're being paid really, really well. You're having fun every day. You put in your work in the gym or on the field or on the ice, and it's hard to take your focus off that. But I think in my case, it would have been good for me because I'm a guy who needs balance. So, if there's an opportunity to kind of develop a program that way, it might be beneficial, because I'm there now where as soon as you stop playing, see you later, and enjoy the rest of your time. And hopefully you can find something that pumps you up in the morning and provides enjoyment and fulfillment like your hockey did. And I'm lucky to be in the position that I'm in, and hopefully, just keep expanding on that.
There you go, being grateful again. All right. I'm just giving you this stuff. But anyway, look, but to me, I mean, look, you bring up a great point, Jesse, because my opinion is that, and you know this, when you're on a team, I mean, you're competing against other teams. I mean, that's what you do. You're trying to beat the other team. But at the same time, you're competitive to the bone. And I don't know, in your case when you were playing, I'm not sure if there was also side things where you guys would play ping pong against each other, soccer against each other, something else, but there's, everyone's competitive. And I think, you bring up such a great point, Jesse, about if the NHL provided some sort of something for its players to do in the off season, whether it's online courses, whether it's go to your local community college and take, 1 day a week, pop in and learn to do blank, what architecture, whatever it might be. Right. But then if they did it so that if you saw a teammate starting to start their own company doing whatever, then you'd be like, wait a minute, I could be doing that too. And make it a competition instead of people all saying, oh, look at that guy, he's starting his own company. We're going to keep on jerking around at the beach or whatever it is. Well, you still have plenty of time to do that. But if it became more of a competitive thing where let's see how many of us can really start doing things that, maybe take an hour a day during the summer or an average of it. Doesn't need to be a big commitment, but just something that starts activating those other brain cells that have kind of been sleeping for a while,
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. When you leave the game and nobody knows in advance when that's going to happen. So it could be when you're 25 or 35 or whatever, or in Yager's case, he'll play till he's 90, but I think that if you were able to do some of that stuff while you're playing, then it's almost like, you're on the runway, but you're already on your way to taking off.
Yeah.
And
you know what? I think there are guys who've kind of done that. A couple come to mind. Matt Duchene starting a clothing line. They call him Mike. It's Matt Duchene, my buddy.
Yeah, right.
I was just thinking Mike Fisher at the same time.
Yeah.
Who I played with in Ottawa, married to Carrie Underwood, and he's helped his brother start a hunting line. For a guy in my shoes, I was never super secure. I was replaceable, admittedly, in the NHL, and it took a lot of my energies to be there. So looking back, I wish I probably could have spent more time looking ahead, but I don't know how it would have worked out for me as well. So I think we've seen movement of guys who are super established and they aren't going anywhere and they're able to develop their other interests. But, I would have loved to have recognized that sooner, but I don't know if I would have been able to change it because I was so focused on riding it out as long as I could have. So the opportunity is there. And it would be up to guys like you to present it in a way that it doesn't really seem like work. Right. It's like going to play a round of golf probably, which is what a lot of guys like to do with their buddies.
Yeah.
But it would help, especially because we're all motivated and we're all competitive, like you said, and it would be beneficial.
Well, you bring up a great point, Jesse. Right there, that was excellent, because I think also what a lot of athletes don't necessarily realize they bring to the table, or a lot of the things that a company, a potential, a career going forward, a company would love to have, that a lot of times athletes don't realize they bring to the table. So, there was another hockey player that I was working with, and he said, well, Mark, I'm just kind of a hockey jock. I'm not really I don't really know what I bring to a company. I've just been skating on a rink my whole life, And one of the things that I like to point out is that when you're an athlete, and you can be a student athlete, an Olympian, professional athlete, it doesn't matter. But when you're an athlete and you have that mindset, you bring things to the table to a company that non-athletes just don't have. And that's the tremendous work ethic, the ability to, you're putting in some significant hours training for this. You're always giving 110, it's cliche 110%, but you're at the top of your game all the time. You know how to adapt quickly under pressure. You know how to be in front of the media, in front of big crowds. You're comfortable in that setting. There's so many things that you have, Jesse, and all athletes have, that sometimes you don't realize it. That 90% of people out there are scared to death of being on a stage or holding a microphone or giving a talk. That's our deal. That's the deal. And athletes don't necessarily they realize, wait a second, I'm not uncomfortable with that. I can speak in front of people. So now you are instantly a top prospect to be hired for a company to do things like media relations, PR, getting out there to spread the word, business development, even, yes, sales too. But there's so many things that are open to athletes that sometimes they don't recognize they have. And that's something that I really want to get much more of the word out. That's why I wrote the book, Win Again, available on Amazon. No, I'm kidding. But oh my God, I almost did this shameless plug there. But anyway, look, I think that one of the things that I think you can do, and I'm just going to jump into coach mode for a second here on my side, is that I think, for example, on your social media, and especially LinkedIn is where now the vast majority of hiring managers, decision makers, key influencers, et cetera, they go to, because it's the place to find people that can step into a position, step into a job. So to me, I think it's critical for you to have a profile on there that not just talks about your hockey playing background, but really shines a heavy spotlight on your interest in non-renewables and the energy stuff and what it is that you have a passion for, and then also start talking more about what you bring to the table as an athlete, and really sort of bolster it more, and then start reaching out to people. And in my case, I would hugely recommend you to start reaching out to fellow Colgate graduates, alumni, and simply say, hey, I'm a former professional athlete, but now I'm really looking to leverage that athletic experience and my knowledge from my school days in having a degree in geography and so on into this space, the energy space, renewable energy space. I'd love to be doing that. I'd love to get your advice, would love to meet with you. And you're going to find, Jesse, that if you sent out 100 invitations on LinkedIn to 100 different alumni with the same message that you can create as a template, where you say, hi, blank, I see that you're involved in renewable energy and you're a fellow Colgate graduate. I'd love to get your advice and insight as I consider a transition. Let's have a conversation, or I'd love to have a chat with you. Hope all is great, Jesse. And you send that out to 100 people, you're going to have at least 40 or 50 or 60 that are, number one, going to accept that invitation. But number two, they're going to want to have that conversation with you. And these are all people that can be senior level people, and you're picking them and you're sending those out. So try to imagine that a week from today, if you sent those out, a week from today, you could have 12, 15, 20 calls with significant level people at companies that do renewable energy. And then you're off and running, because all you're doing is you're doing it with the idea of asking for their advice. You're not saying, hey, can I send you my resume? Hey, I want an interview. I want a job. You're saying, I'd love your advice. People love to give advice and they hate to help. They hate helping. Hey, can I help you? I'm sorry. Hey, Jesse, I'd love your help with something. What you're thinking is, oh, shoot, I need help moving or something, right? Not anything else. So anyway, that's a lot of what, look, from my perspective, any athlete out there, any athlete has a ton that they're bringing to the table, and they just need to do a few certain things that really can elevate and really get you cranking along on a job search, career search, or if you want to start a business, figuring out what that is. So with all that said, Jesse, I know I threw a lot at you there, and I'm sort of sorry, not really, but I'm the type of person I love to, I feel that there's some people out there that really have a lot of this expertise in really helping, certain people, and in this case, athletes, really make that transition. And I'd love it if, more of this information got out to more of these athletes, because a lot of them, as we've already gone through, really struggle with that post-retirement transition and segment. What do you think? How'd that sound to you?
Sounds awesome. Yeah, it's always nice to have, what I have to learn to do better. And it's whether I go to take hockey interviews for coaching at the college level or whatnot, is just being able to touch on those things that you're able to pull up so easily. yeah, I have a great experience playing and I can handle pressure. I can do all this stuff, but sometimes I have to learn how to put that into words, just communicate that part of it with people. Because look, I'm a confident guy. Guys who I've played with who may be going through tough times transitioning, they're confident people too. But it would help them learn to communicate and just learn themselves a little bit more, because I'm sure the value's there. I've played with guys who, just solid people who work, who could benefit companies, people, groups, teams, the way they did when they played on the ice. So pretty impressive to hear that kind of stuff, and serves for motivation to kind of, learn to communicate my abilities a little bit more concisely, I guess, and accurately.
Well, look, I'm sort of ambushing you with a lot of this stuff, so I didn't mean to put you on the spot like this, but look, honestly, we're going to talk offline a fair amount about this, because I think that you're the perfect example of what a lot of people are going through with it. You've got a tremendous future ahead of you, and you've got your next career and the rest of your life that maybe end up being just far better than what you've already experienced. And I want to make sure that you understand all the resources that you bring to the table that can really make that happen. So we'll talk some more about that. I'm going to jump into a real fast segment that we're going to, I always like to wrap up my podcast with. It's called Hit Your Mark. Yeah. And it's pretty damn easy to do. Ready?
Yeah.
Number 1, do you own a boat?
Yes. Emphatic yes.
What's it called?
It's a Lund hybrid fishing boat. It's I'm a diehard outdoorsman. So
no, what's the name of the boat?
No name on it. No, it's not that big. It's not a big boat. It's a fishing. It
doesn't need to be. You can have a canoe. It doesn't matter. So what would you call it if you could?
Oh man, I don't know. My pass. Doesn't deserve a name.
That's great. All right, next question. Do you have a dog or a cat?
Dog, golden retriever.
All right, good. Now, if you had an option to have a pet that wasn't a dog or a cat, what would it be?
Hamster.
Really?
Yeah, I got a 3-year-old daughter who'd love to play with it. So.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my most traumatic experiences with having a hamster, actually, when I was a kid, mostly because I was playing with it and it fell and broke its back. Anyway, we'll move right along. All right, next question, Your Honor. Here, next question. If you could have drinks, dinner, whatever it is, with 3 people, alive or dead, who would they be?
Oof. You know what? I'd have to go right now. One of them would be my professor at in the class that I'm taking right now. I think he's the coolest dude.
Wow.
Right. I'd love to learn more about his life. And then, I've answered these questions when I was playing, and it was always like Tiger Woods, guys like that. But, I think Peter Forsberg would be one. He's still kind of a guy that I looked up to as a hockey player. And then, one more, make it a good one. That's a lot of pressure, man.
Well,
I'd like a night out with my wife, actually. We have 2 little kids.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to get away for a day.
Now that's pretty funny. You're the first one to ever say that. Good for you. You just earned massive points with your wife. I promise you. Well done. Well played. No, that's great. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time today, Jesse. It's been great to have you on, and I also appreciate the fact that you've, I call this make your mark, and you've certainly made your mark, but there's a lot of that coming forward. And I also thank you for, sort of bearing some of the stuff that you did, because I know it's not easy to talk about. So thanks for being on. I really look forward to, we're going to have you part of a panel at Colgate in the near term coming up, but also just, really talking to you some more about what lies ahead for you. So thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really, really enjoyed it. Love the stories. It's good stuff.
Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.